Welcome back, Shane GTC. Hey, if you guys have been following the news cycle, there's a cargo ship called the Dali, D-A-L-I, that was cruising at about 8 knots or 9 miles an hour. And for whatever reason, not an investigative journalist and I'm not speculating, but facts are facts, whatever happened, it took out the bridge quite quickly and has created quite the economic crisis. In addition, there's obviously some casualties, and so I want to be sensitive to this tragic incident. But taking a step back from that, and my heart goes out to obviously Baltimore and the jobs affected and the families affected. I want to remind everyone this is a car channel, and so that aside, being sensitive to that topic, that aside, I want to talk about, sort of give a little background on the Baltimore Bridge and the Port of Baltimore and focus in on how this may affect the car world again. And remember, COVID taught us a lot. I think it taught us a lot, exposed us greatly, and not just us, the supply chain. And we have just been inundated with the supply chain issues that COVID created when we shut down everything. And we saw how it affected everything. I mean, prices went up, but specific again, let's stay on topic to the cars. It created this massive increase in car prices, chip shortages, etc. So the focus of today's video is, yes, the Baltimore Bridge went down, but how does that have anything to do with the automotive industry? So let's take a closer look. So again, just a little bit of background. The Port of Baltimore is the main maritime port of entry and exit of vehicles and automotive parts in the U.S. Let me say that again. The Port of Baltimore is the main port of entry, maritime port of entry for entry and exit of vehicles and automotive parts in the U.S. So although it ranks 17th, and I'll show you a graph here, 17th in terms of the size of the port for tons of goods coming in, it's the number one by most sources. Some say top 1 or 2 in terms of vehicles coming in. In fact, last year, according to the US News, it was around 850,000 vehicles, light trucks coming through there. That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of cars coming through. And it's not, and I'm not a logistics expert, but we saw how we were completely exposed through COVID, completely exposed. And we saw the fragility of the supply chain. And then, of course, the trickle-down effect was it affected everything, things we didn't even think about, tires and plastic parts and the chip supply. And then, of course, that just rolled down to the consumer and created this massive amount of demand, and the supply was low. And, of course, prices went up, $10,000, $15,000. It just was a huge impact on consumers. Now, I'm focusing on cars. I'm not talking about all the economic goods that come through there. Of course, there's just a much bigger picture here, but we are a car channel. So let's keep that in mind. So now you kind of know where Baltimore sits, what the impact is, and it's not as easy as just saying, hey, take that ship, reroute it to another port. You've got obviously massive ships coming into the port. You can't just go, hey, go over there. Now you've got a backlog. Who's going to unload those? Where are the employees going to come from? Can they handle it? And what's the cost of rerouting that? And how is that going to translate to vehicles and the consumer? Not all manufacturers are affected, right? There's some West Coast vehicles that may not have issues, but according to US News, it looks like Nissan, Toyota, General Motors, Ford, Volvo, Jaguar, Land Rover, and even Volkswagen, they may be affected. It looks like they use Baltimore as their base for shipping to and from Europe. Just as a side note, according to US News, the first VW Beetle was imported in 1963. Kind of a cool little side note. So the real question is, and I think this is where we can get into some sort of community conversation, is, again, the tragedy aside, are we going to see another opportunity for these predatory practices of the automotive industry to say, oh shoot, you know, this is terrible, but unfortunately these cars are now in high demand and shortage, and we're going to start to see the prices increase. 10 media outlets right now that are reporting specifically on how this is going to affect the automotive side. So it's not just me sort of nitpicking this out and going blowing this up, and it's a big deal. I mean, you've got all the CEOs from the major manufacturers already weighing in. Some are saying, don't know, can't guarantee anything. Others are saying, should be fine. We'll see, only time will tell. I mean, we didn't think anything would happen out of the COVID either until the trickle down. So are we gonna see in the next 3 to 6 months that this could be an issue? I don't know. All right, so final wrap up here. Port of Baltimore, having some issues. And it looks like we're getting all the key players in place. I don't agree, though, with some of these assessments that we were incredibly mobile during the last COVID. I think, although we may have been mobile, we realized how lean the automotive and fragile the automotive industry is. And I'm not talking just cars. I think they'll find a way to get those cars into port, but we're talking about just all the other supplies and automotive supplies. So I would say, we're sitting here in the spring, and I would say over the next 3 to 6 months, you might see some disruption. I hope it's minimal. I hope it's just a blip and we figure it out, get that bridge back up and some workarounds. Bridge is obviously going to take, years to rebuild, but here we go again. Hang on. And if you guys have some other insight, I'd love to hear about it in the chat. Anyways, I thought this was an interesting update. I've been following it closely. Hopefully you guys have, and I hope that those of you on the East Coast, take care, be safe. Until next time, this is Shane, GTC.